Our next topic is actually maybe something of interest if you have time to pay attention to. It's the challenge that we face on creating the aspirational trails map. And I'm going to turn it over to Brendan again to talk about how does he want the public to engage in coming up with good ideas for trails.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you, Supervisor Vega. That's very helpful to have you on the call. I'm going to introduce Rob Boyd, and he's going to go through kind of what we're looking at as an aspirational trail map. All these connections that we've talked about, they're critical. We have a Trail and Blueway Council in the county, and then I know David's on the call. He's the chair of it. We wrestle with these connections on a monthly basis, and it is awesome to have an outside group helping as well. It's great for us to get everybody interested in getting us, but we need the feedback on the trails themselves. You know, where are the connections? Where do we need, you guys are walking, you guys know your areas very well. And of course we think we do as well, but we need to have something that shows us where we need to go in the future as part of the planning process. So with that, I'm gonna have Charlie, if you could have Robert share his screen. Robert Boyd is our is a planner / GIS analyst / project manager, because we could always use more people in parks. Especially a trail planner. We are advertising for a principal planner within the next week or so. So if anybody knows of any great planners that want to come work for a great organization, we'd love to have them apply. Robert's been doing an amazing job for the last 2 years for us, and is put together the existing conditions on our trails, including sidewalks and things like that. So we just want to have a discussion today, and then we need to determine how we receive feedback. We don't really have a lot of time today to go into the sections themselves, but we're going to give you an overview and go from there. We are super interested in the connections, not just within the county, but outside of the county. So our different the different counties around us, or the cities and towns that are within us. So with that, Robert, are you ready to go?
Yep. Yes, so as Brenda mentioned, we're really looking for feedback, not only for the coalition's efforts, but we also have the comprehensive plan update coming up for the mobility chapter, which will include the section on trails. So
what are you doing? Do your schoolwork.
As kind of concurrent efforts for that, we were trying to figure out how we could garner feedback from not only you guys and the Trails and Blueways Council, but also just the general public at large, and also keep them informed of this mobility chapter update and what the county is trying to do to expand the trail network and improve the network we've already got. So this tool that I built is a story map application, and essentially what it is, can everybody see it? Is the size okay? Okay. Essentially what it is a series of maps showing the existing conditions, and then also what is planned in the county. And for what we have planned, that's mainly stuff from the 2008 comprehensive plan and other internal planning efforts. It's publicly known lines that have been drawn on a map somewhere. So this initial map just gives an overview again of the existing trails in the county. It's not just our Department of Parks and Recreation trails, it's the federal trails, the state park trails. And then if you can, and it also gives some information about the comprehensive plan. And if you go on, the next tab is paved trails. And again, it's existing trails. It's everything that's been put on a map. And I know that this map is, it kind of looks like spaghetti on a plate, but that's kind of, the maps are kind of secondary for this specific tool, because the important part is this last tab, which is a survey. And so what we really need from you guys, and we'll send out this link afterwards, what we really need from you guys, and we're also doing this with the Trails and Blueways Council, is your input on the process for gathering this feedback. What questions should we ask? What should we show? what information do we need to get to properly plan for the future of the trail system within the county. And then the other part of that is, now that we have this information, Ann and Moses and myself and the rest of the coalition can use that to advance the efforts of the coalition. So whereas for the mobility chapter, we're really focused on within the county borders. Once we have that information, we can expand it and use it to go across the borders into the cities, into the towns, and the coalition can really push those efforts in all the jurisdictions in Prince William County. So, like I said, really what we're looking for is feedback on the process to start with. And we'll send out the link and let everybody email in. I know we're crunched on time today, but if anybody has any quick questions, I can talk about anything that anybody has for the moment. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions? Let me see. Let me pull up the chat real quick.
One quick question is
Yep.
about the trail along I-66.
I believe we have it shown. So we have, again, these are just most of this information on the paved trails page is from the Department of Transportation, right? The county DOT. And what we're showing is all these dashed lines are paved trails that are in various stages of funding. Either they've been funded, which are the green lines, they're seeking funding actively, which is the blue lines, or they're really just more aspirational, which is these red lines, which you can see is most of them. We also show the open space corridors that were used in planning efforts, which are also, the hope is that we have trails through all of those corridors. But yeah, that's the type of thing. If there's something that you think should be shown on this map, let me know about it, and I'll at least look into it and figure out what we have on it, and we can go from there.
Are the open space corridors based on what the Northern Virginia Regional Commission drafted several years ago?
I believe they're internal. Now, that was before I was here, so I'm not 100% sure where they came from, but I know that they were used in the last technical update to the comprehensive plan. I'm not sure if the county came up with them on their own or based them off of the Northern Virginia Regional Trust plans.
Regional Commission, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So let me recycle. What exactly is it you're asking us as our participants in this call and members of the coalition? What are you asking us to do, and when do you want us to do it?
So initially, I'll send out this link to this tool after the meeting to everyone. And initially what we want is, how can we refine the process of getting information on the trails? We don't necessarily want information. We don't want where you think trails should go yet. We want to figure out how we're going to figure out how everyone wants trails, where everyone wants trails first. So we'll have a period of about 2 weeks where we'll receive feedback on the process. So just refining this tool, refining the survey, how should we get the survey out to people? And then after that, we'll do a more public launch, both through the county's channels and hopefully through the coalition, to garner the feedback on the actual trail system.
So you're asking us to provide input about the process of collecting the data now. Don't feed you the gaps, don't feed you the missing trail corridors, don't feed you the wildlife corridors yet. Just give you the ideas about, is this process going to give us the aspirational trails map tool? And then we can go to the public and say, what are your aspirations? Do I get that right?
Yep, that's correct. So if you have feedback on how the tool should work, how the tool should be viewed, how the tool should be distributed, That's what we're looking for in this first 2-week period. And then once we make a more public launch of it, then you'll have the opportunities to complete the survey, to give your feedback on all the things you mentioned, the missing corridors, where you would like the trail system to go, where you'd like it to be improved.
So anybody who has experience at going through a trails planning process in the past for the Capital Trails Network or any other trails network, if you have lessons learned, if you have, oh my goodness, don't make this mistake again experiences, or if you have this really worked for us suggestions, Robert will be asking you for that feedback. The county is going to be building the aspirational trails map, and it's going to be part of the decision process for the mobility chapter of the 2040 comprehensive plan. That means 20 years of trails plan will end up in that mobility chapter. We as a coalition engage with the 2 cities, the 4 towns, and with our neighbors as well. So we as a coalition may end up with a more ambitious aspirational trails map than what ends up in the mobility chapter. So we're in discussion about how do we first feed into the mobility chapter? That's the priority we're discussing today. Then we'll feed into the mobility chapter conversation. That will occur when the county launches the formal public input process that allows us to suggest the gaps in the ideas and the corridors. And then at some point, we may say, we have a bigger vision than what the county put into the mobility chapter. We as the coalition are not a county organization, so we can provide our own ideas on a continuing basis beyond what ends up being incorporated in the mobility chapter. So that's the discussion we've been having at the steering committee level about what are we trying to accomplish with this coalition? Why are we asking people to come join us on quarterly meetings? We think that we may end up with a great mobility chapter with a great set of dotted lines and dashed lines and fully completed lines. We know we have 20 years of budget arguments ahead of us where we're going to have to be talking to the elected officials in all of the jurisdictions about actually turning lines into trails. And we anticipate that we might have a vision beyond what we get approved by the jurisdictions. And that'll be a continuing opportunity for the 2060 comprehensive plan, perhaps.
And I think, Charlie, just for folks to know, I think building that that greater Prince William aspirational map is part of our RTCA technical assistance. So trying to understand how this can occur concurrently in terms of once the tool is ready, how my colleague Moses, who's on the call with us, how we can work with Robert and with you all, because we're interested in really getting greater community input on that. And I really liked what the supervisors said in terms of those community connections to schools and churches and those nodes, those different areas that are those entry points to create that interconnected trail system.
And if you check in the chat, you'll see that Eileen has posted a note about how if your organization is not yet a partner in the Greater Prince William Trails Coalition, if you're a non-government organization or a business, or if you know of somebody who might want to join us in this discussion, we'd welcome you to join us as a partner. The price is right. It's absolutely free. And if you are a government organization, we welcome you to join as an advisor. We know that as a government organization, you can't get into the budget conversation and start speaking in public about how we must fund this or we should fund that. But you certainly are key to this capacity for us to communicate and coordinate and to share our ideas in a constructive fashion. So we'd invite you, if you know of government organizations that would be appropriate to join us as a advisor, encourage adding them to our coalition as well. Again, it's a multi-year challenge. This won't get done overnight. We will be doing this for many, many years to come. So we're building an institution that gives us the capacity to be repeating the phrase, it's time for trails, many, many times to come. Brendan, do you have any more do you want to add about the process?
No, I actually just have one thing I forgot to mention earlier. We are starting the Cockpit Point Civil War Park build out, and it'll include a parking lot and a trail system. So just stay tuned for that. We'll be doing some public hearings on that. That's, for those who don't know what Cockpit Point is a beautiful stretch of land along the Potomac River in the Potomac District. So I neglected to mention that earlier. But we appreciate everybody's interest and assistance. I think thank you, Robert, for laying what out our initial steps are. And from those initial steps, we hope to put together a map that will really help the mobility chapter. We feel like we need to be, because, and as David would say if he were on the mic right now, because it is not part of the trails, are not part of the parks chapter anymore. They're in the mobility chapter. We really want to stay involved as a community and as a county entity with our brethren over in transportation to make sure that we receive our due on that mobility plan. And they've already committed to doing that. So we're very excited about starting that process.
Okay, so we want to thank you all for joining us today. We have given ourselves an hour for this discussion, and we've pretty much used the hour. If you want to stay online and chat, we can do that as well. But we structured this so that you'd have something as a takeaway. You got a homework assignment. You're going to be getting an email from Robert, and he's going to ask you for your perspective on how to provide input for our aspirational trails map. So even though we're going to finish this morning in an hour, you are getting homework. You get to do even more work after this.
Charlie, do you have a sense for folks in terms of when you want to reach out to folks for the next steering committee? I'm sorry, for the next coalition meeting? Just, do you have a sense of that, just for people to look out for that invite in the future?
I would expect January will be when we gather together again. We may have more details about the mobility chapter development at that time, but we try to do quarterly meetings so that we stay up to speed. And so long as we're having to do it by Zoom, we'll do it by Zoom. At some point, we'll get back together again in person. But look for something for us to be back together again in January. And at that point, we'll be providing input to the aspirational trails map. So we'll be able to provide the specific places and suggestions that we have to offer. So again, thank you for joining us today. We will be posting YouTube videos and minutes, and you'll be getting an email with the maps attached and a request to participate. So that's the meeting for today.
Thank
you,
you all.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
everybody.
all for joining us.